Not your average tabletop. Woohoo!
Welcome to Not Your Average Tabletop. I'm Zach.
And I'm Mac.
And today we're giving our first impressions of Foundations of Rome, which is, as you can tell, a huge game, a huge box.
She big.
Yeah, quite large. I haven't actually attempted to put it in a Calyx cube yet, but I'm pretty sure I've seen it. Other people do it in the past, so I assume it does fit. But it's going to take up probably a full cube. It would be my guess.
I would think so.
And yeah, this is one that, I don't know, I've always been excited for ever since I saw it on I think the Dice Tower has mentioned it several times, and yeah, the look of the game, the table presence is really what pulled me in. I'm a sucker for that, I would say.
Yeah.
And once MaKayla saw it, she probably knew right away that that's what suckered me in. And then the fact that I also knew it was more of a quicker game. It wasn't like, oh, it's a grand, huge game and then it's going to take hours, it's high strategy, that type of game. No, on the lighter medium weight side of things.
I wasn't sure if you were going to commit to it because, one, it would take up a whole cube and you have limited cubes. To the price, and with it not being a heavier game, I just kind of was curious about whether or not the price for the replayability was there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's definitely a fair thing, and luckily now they, I think, are making a new game for people that maybe were interested in this but didn't like the price tag, didn't like how big it was. And I think they're making like a cardboard version. I don't remember what it's called. Foundation is something else. Or something, I think. So there is that option now, which I think will be nice. But it obviously won't have the same table presence as this. But then people have a cheaper option of being able to experience the gameplay.
Right.
But yeah, so I think I was probably more excited about it than you were. Especially seeing the bigness. You don't get too excited about games most of the time. Obsession might be the only one that was based on the theme, but
yeah.
I'm guessing this architect type theme here of building up Rome doesn't really appeal to you any more than other games that build up things too.
Yeah, I think like the theme like of Rome and like stuff, that's fun. Like I enjoy like the antiquity based games. You know, those are always kind of neat.
Yeah. But now we have a couple of games themed in the Rome area, but I think recently we didn't have any. So, yeah, but anyway, we got one play of this one in so far, so this is really our first impressions after one play. And yeah, I think it was pretty much exactly what it said it was. It's from... what's his name? Emerson Matsuuchi, who I believe also did the Century games. I believe that was him. But if he didn't, you can definitely see the similarities to that, where you've got the card row, and in this one you're paying coins for them. They get more expensive as you go around. Otherwise, you're putting gems out on the cards.
Sure.
So you can see that part. But then I would say the rest of it feels kind of like Bunny Kingdom.
It's like a basic mechanic, though. You can't say...
Right. But I'm just saying if that is his game, it's something he's used then in another game before. Okay. But that is done in other games as well.
I'll allow it.
That is definitely something that's done in many games where if you take a card further down, you have to potentially pay something for it.
Yes.
And yeah, I think this one was very simple. You had very few things you could do. You could either buy plots of land, kind of Bunny Kingdom style if you ever played that. This game's basically a grid of lots that you can buy, and then you're trying to get lots next to each other so that you can, as one of your other actions, build up your buildings. Every player has the same buildings to start off with. Some of them give you population, some give you income, and then some give you victory points. So that's just kind of the next thing you can do. Otherwise, you can just take coins, which you're going to be using to get those plots of land. So it's all pretty simple actions. So once you kind of know how to play it, I think it's simplicity to it.
I think so.
You'd agree with that?
Yes, for what it is, for how big it is, I was like, this is extremely simple. Like, I was like, really? We did this much production just to lay on a grid and buy cards? I was like, that's it?
It definitely has a very simplistic feel to it for what the production is. But the production is really great. Yeah. I think once I got it, the buildings are all really, really nice.
Detailed.
And, detailed. And, the pieces that you're putting out there are even nice. At first I thought they were going to be just cubes. I didn't realize that they were going to actually be kind of...
Yeah, the videos different. I watched, they were like basic things, and I'm like, oh, you must have got the upgrade pack.
I was actually expecting like cubes. So I was like, nice.
Even cooler.
We've got... the whatever. Well, I don't know that there is another version of the game that has cardboard until now that they're doing a brand new game, supposedly. I enjoyed the simplicity of it. I think this one will play slightly differently with different player counts, but I think even at higher player counts, I think it's going to be a faster game. Where turns are going to be pretty snappy because, like I said, there's only 3 things you can do. And if you don't have money, it takes away one of the options that you can do. Yep. And if you don't have any of those buildings out, you can't put buildings, or if you don't have your little pegs out there, you can't put buildings out there. Potentially, I guess you could replace them.
Right.
I feel like we didn't do that too much. There was a couple times, but I think that's one of the things with more plays, kind of being willing to trade out buildings, which is something we didn't overly do. We might have done like once or twice, but
right.
I think being a little bit more strategic about that. And then half of the building, or maybe a third of the buildings are population buildings. And in a 2-player game, that wasn't probably quite as interesting as it would be with more players. The way we ended up playing it, I ended up getting all the bonuses, but the way that works, I think is cool, but I think it's cooler when you have more players, where you get the amount of points that the player in front of you, wherever they are in the population, you get that many points. So if you're in second, or the person first has 20, person second has 10, and the next person has 9. Person in second gets the 20 points, the person in third gets only 10 points. So in there could be a little bit of a battle. But in our game, I ended up getting far enough ahead that it wasn't really worth it for you to spend anything on that because you were getting 10 points either way unless you passed me.
And I only lost by like 5 points.
Right. So it didn't even matter that I got all of the bonus points, which I think is 21 extra points. So.
Right.
But it was nice to know that you could win doing those buildings in a 2-player game. I wasn't sure if that would come back to haunt me because the income buildings also were giving you points for having those out.
I didn't get
which the population did not.
Yeah.
No.
I should have got the one off sooner. So.
Yeah. I guess what were your thoughts? I've done all the talking.
I don't know. I'm conflicted. That's why I've let you talk. Because I feel like this game is like loved by the community in a way that like Arc Nova kind of is loved, like a newer.
I don't know if it's as loved. Probably because of the price point. I don't know if as many people have played it.
Okay. I just always hear about it, so I'm kind of like, I don't know. I'm conflicted. In some ways, it's good. In some ways, it's not my style because it's essentially area control, and it's not always my favorite to weigh out, like, do I build this building or do I spend my turn to buy a card? You know, eventually you're going to have to take money, you know, so it's kind of all about positioning yourself for future turns, I think. And then there is, you mentioned the ability to swap buildings. So, you know, if you control so many, you know, you could take out those 2 buildings and throw a big one on there, which I like the concept of it, but I don't know, it's kind of sneaky. You have to be thinking about what you're going to do with that space, I think, because you might inadvertently give someone points, or you might, I don't know, you're building buildings in spaces for a reason. And so it's just kind of one of those things where it just makes me think like I could build something and then you could swap it out, take all those points away from me, and I maybe can't do anything with that building now.
Mm-hmm.
So, or you waste a turn doing something with that building. So, and I think the game needs that. Otherwise, it would be way too simple. But that's just not. I don't like to sit there and think about, like, oh, he's got 4 in a row, so he's probably going to swap it out for this one, and then maybe I should build this building if he does swap it, but if I build that building, then he's not going to swap it for that one. He'll swap it for a different one, kind of a thing. So I think the more strategic parts of this game are, like, feeling out your opponents to see what they're going to buy, when they're going to buy, and what they're going to play. Like, it's not so much the game on the board that you're playing. You're playing each other, I think.
That's fair.
I think.
Yeah, there is definitely some of that, and I think it is interesting that I think it's the civic buildings are the ones that score victory points. They're all either 1s and 2s, so
there's one that's a 3.
You can't. Is there a 3?
Uh-huh.
No. So you can't as easily sneak those scoring buildings in afterwards because you can't replace a. If you already built like a 2 building, you can't replace it with a 1 or 2 building. Yeah. So you have to either leave those spots as just your little plot. I'm going to call it cubits, whatever it is. You have to kind of just leave that and then see kind of how the area around it plays out versus being able to, oh, I've laid this 3 income building. I want to actually replace that with a whatever. Mm-hmm. And there is potential ways to... if you do get a bigger building than the one that's already placed, and you could somehow get it so part of that building that you just got rid of was not covered up with a new building, you could potentially sneak that. And I think that's where maybe...
But that takes turns, time and money.
I'm interested in more plays as to how that will actually feel, if it will be like, oh, you said, it's almost a sneakiness of trying to get them into positions to score those points, because I think that's probably a pretty important thing at the end of the game.
Yeah. I don't know.
So we'll see.
Yeah.
But I guess you're not as in love with Bunny Kingdom, it seems like, as the rest of us? I guess, would you prefer Bunny Kingdom or this one? Because they do have some similarities, I would say. Some. It's not the same game, but...
At this point, I would probably say Bunny Kingdom. Just because, well, one, I'm way more familiar with it, but I think also, you're drafting cards, which is one of my favorite mechanisms, and with that, you kind of have control, not a lot of control, but you have control over what you choose. Not that you don't hear, but it costs you nothing to grab those cards. Like, it's...
The Bunny Kingdom ones.
Yeah, it's not a decision, really, that you have to weigh out of, like, what do I do on my turn? You always have to draft a card. So you have to take something. What you choose can be weighed out, but it's not impacting, really. I mean, it is, but not in the same way. They're different pieces. Because, sure, you want them close, but sometimes you don't even have the option of close. So then you take a mountain or a castle or something. So the decision is different, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. So even though it's grid and stuff, the decisions are different. Similar, but I think the core is different.
Yeah, that's fair. 'Cause you have to... This one does matter on timing of, when to actually put a building out, when to buy the plots. If you need to sneak a money turn, because those are the ones that you want to take the least, but at least you are getting something during those, and it feels like it sets you up for a decent amount of turns afterwards. It's not like, oh, I gotta take money, then I buy a card, oh, now I gotta take money again. It's not like you're taking a lot of those turns.
Yeah, luckily. No, you were definitely like, I need to get this coin building out before I take money again, so.
Right.
Or at least that's what I was doing in my head. I was like, then I get another coin.
And we did play with, I think there's several modules in this one. And I got it with the expansion, I believe, already in there. But we played with the Monuments expansion, and none of us went for the Monuments. Partially maybe because I know I kind of sort of forgot they were there.
They were in front of me.
But at the same time, I don't know, they felt a little less interesting than the pieces I had. So
Well,
maybe if I thought about it a little bit.
In
It
a
was the
two-player
first time
game,
playing
you've
it.
got a much smaller grid to work with than you would on like a 5-player game.
But you actually probably get more squares. 'Cause I at least counted the 2 versus 3.
Sure.
And if you took an average amount of squares in the
Sure.
2-player game, you get like 24 to 25. In the 3-player game, you get 21 on average. If
okay.
everyone got the same amount.
But
Because
then-
I was interested in that. I was like, do you get more? Or is it about the same?
But then
It's
you
not that
end up
much
having
less,
to
but-
take your already built buildings off the board and put them back into your set, which if they're coin buildings or point buildings, you're just going to lose in your population. And then
Right.
you try and get a big one back out there. Oh, honey, late in the game, that ain't happening. It ain't happening.
Right. And yeah, if it was a higher player count, I mean, it's probably more likely that people are going to be picking areas next to each other.
Yeah.
At least in our game, it seemed like we sort of stayed apart. A little bit of
Well, that's so
intermingling.
hard because you want to take ones next to each other, but you
Right.
also don't want to let people get ones next to each other. So you can hate buy, but I don't know that that's going to work.
Yeah, maybe in a higher player game.
Yeah.
In 2 players, I don't know if it's necessarily worth it if you have one that's kind of next to you and one next to your opponent. I don't know that it actually does you that much good to take the one next to your opponent.
A higher player count just sounds stressful for me.
I want to try it, but
I know. We'll have
I
to
know
try
you-
it because I know that my brother wants to play this game. So,
yeah, and maybe I think like all the ones we ended up getting, I just randomly picked monuments instead of do, and I feel like we got almost all the biggest ones. So
Yeah.
that might have played into it too. That we just, like you said, then you're replacing your biggest buildings, and I don't know, it doesn't feel as good then. But there are there's a couple smaller ones in there, so maybe with that it would be more interesting. But yeah, I think there's a few other modules, so we haven't tried those yet. But I think as of right now, probably give this one like a 7.75, maybe an 8, somewhere in there. I did really like what it was doing, but at the same time, I would definitely recommend. It's a very expensive game to try it if you have the chance to try it, or see kind of how when they do, I don't know when the new game is actually coming out. I just know they're making one. I think it might be coming out Gen Con this year. Maybe look into that one too to see if it's a little cheaper. See if it's the type of game you like. Just because, it is a little bit more on the simple side. So if you usually like a heavier strategy game, I don't know that this is going to feel like that, even though it is a huge box.
deceiving.
Right.
Yeah. I'd probably give it 6.5 to a 7 at this point. I mean, I think I've explained, there's just some games that are your vibe and some that aren't, and this one kind of hits, it kind of doesn't. I think it's going to take a few more plays for me to understand and kind of get on board with, like, the placement, the decision-making pieces of it. So, I thought it was good. I mean, the production is excellent. It is simplistic, which I do really enjoy, because if they had made this any more difficult, I don't know if it would have worked, but yeah, so probably 6.5, 7, somewhere in there.
Okay. Yeah, that's totally fair.
I use the BGG ranking, okay? So before you come at me, read the description.
I think that's totally fair, because it is. It's not like it's some major game, and if it's just not your vibe, switching them out, area controlled style, that's just the way it is.
He's like, now I get to put this on my shelf.
But now you can go check out our unboxing video if you want to see all the cool stuff that came in the box. If you're interested in potentially getting this one sometime down the road, you can see kind of what you're going to get. But yeah, we hope to see you on that video. And as always, don't forget to keep on nibbling on our content.